sitting here in Richland, Washington with Greg Kelly and his Aunt Virginia. I know Greg Kelly, formerly Mr. Kelly to me, because he was my calculus teacher during the senior year of high school. I think I passed your class. I think I got like a B or something.
I think you got an A.
So how did each of you end up living in Richland? How did you both find your way here?
I came with my dad and mother. Mm-hmm. The whole family were transferred here by DuPont. And Dad worked out in a 300 area, I think. And I don't know much about what he did, don't know anything about what he did. Mm-hmm. But anyway, and I came as a junior in high school and went to the old high school to start with.
Columbia High School back then?
The one that was here pre-government.
Oh, I see.
Pre-government. And I was there for about a month, and then I moved up to the new Richland High School, Cole High. We moved into an F house on the corner of Stevens and Williams.
Wow.
So the alphabet houses I've been in, I think 7. Lived in 7.
You were in a bunch.
Yeah.
And how did you end up here?
Well, I was born here. My father, of course, moved out with his family, mm-hmm. with my aunt. He moved right after graduating from high school. And he ended up working at the Hanford project as just a laborer for a year because he had anticipated joining the service. This was during World War II. Mm-hmm. But at the time he was 4F, he was undersized and he couldn't get into the service. So he worked at the Hanford project for a year and was all set to go to college. And in the meantime, he grew and gained weight. And so then he got drafted.
Wow.
But he met my mother at Washington State University and came back to work for DuPont and then General Electric. And so I was born here in Richland in the old Cadillac Hospital.
Wow. That's amazing. So you've both been here for a significant amount of time. And obviously the reason we're here is because the region has significant history with, World War II and the Manhattan Project. Could you talk about the moment that you realized that where you live, there was something special or unique or unusual about where you live? Because I'm sure when you first moved out here, or when you were younger, you didn't really understand what was going on.
No, I didn't know anything about what they didn't discuss it. If they discussed it at home, they got fired. Mm-hmm. You didn't discuss your work.
Was there a moment when you kind of put it together what was going on? Or?
I did it. I was selling tickets at the Village Theater mm-hmm. when they announced that the bomb dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima was made from parts here. Mm-hmm. And I was selling tickets. And I have to tell you, I thought, what have they done? Mm-hmm. Open Pandora's box. Because I thought, how can we control that now? So I was really upset a little bit by it.
Yeah.
Proud, but upset.
Mm-hmm. Greg?
See, I, of course, grew up with the propaganda, I guess you would say, or publicity. Mm-hmm. And so when I was a little kid, I was just totally convinced that atomic energy was just the answer to everything.
Right.
And so I knew from as soon as I could understand anything, I knew that there were reactors out on the project. I didn't know what my dad did on the project.
Right.
But I knew he took a bus out to work and came back in the bus. You may have seen the photos of the simulated atomic bomb when city of Richland gained its independence. That is one of my earliest memories of being there and having my father, as he's holding my hand, explain to me that it wasn't a real atomic bomb, that it was an explosion.
Wow.
And so it wasn't until much, much later that I started to think about sort of the nuances of what had happened.
Right.
As we used to joke, if you grew up in Richland, you're just convinced that radiation is good for you.
They said we glowed in the dark.
That's right, they still do. Do you remember when they made the switch from Cole High to Richland High and became the Bombers? Do you remember anything?
I know when they did it. I was not here because
right.
we were on our way back from West Virginia because DuPont had said Dad could come back. And the class that went into as a senior, that were going to graduate in 46, they changed it. It was a Beaver before that.
Right.
And they decided since they had dropped the bomb, they should be the Bombers. really is that.
Right, it wasn't the
Yeah.
day's pay.
No,
Yeah, I
it
don't
wasn't
think-
the day's pay.
I
It
don't
didn't
think
have
anyone-
anything to do with that.
I don't think anyone being genuine is, seriously thinks that anymore. So, Greg, you've lived here, pretty much your entire life. So you've kind of gotten to go through, like you mentioned, kind of going through being a kid and, atomic energy is great and all these things,
Right.
to being slightly more skeptical. How has the attitude or the culture of Richland kind of changed over the years as we kind of come to a better understanding of, what this is, moving from, we created this thing, to, well, maybe this thing isn't actually as great as we think it is, to even what we see today. I mean, in the news, Iran's in the news today, and you can even trace that straight back to what happened out at the site here.
I should mention that I did graduate from Richland High School.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
Wow.
that was before Hanford had opened.
Oh.
And so, of course, at Richland High School at the time, the culture, at least among the
Mm-hmm.
jocks, was just very, very much, Newcomb, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I was not part of that group.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the late 60s, early 70s. That's when the sort of anti-war culture started.
Right.
And I actually helped distribute an underground newspaper at Richland High School.
I think it was probably sometime when I first got out of high school, because of course when you're in high school, maybe I was in a couple honors classes, but I, drank the bomber Kool-Aid kind of thing. And then I got to college, and I think I was wearing like a bomber sweatshirt or something someday, and someone asked me what that was, and that was kind of the first time it occurred to me, like, well, maybe this isn't something that is, all that, something to be proud of. Virginia, for you, I was also kind of wondering, did you notice, you probably saw Richland grow into something more, because when you moved out here, even when my dad moved out here in the late 80s, it was like just totally barren. So you probably remember even a time before that, and you've seen the whole progression of Richland from basically nothing to today. What was that like? And how's it changed?
Yeah, well, you could ride the bus free. I can still do that because of my age. There was one grocery store in town at first,
Wow.
but when they built the houses, they had little places in each area where they have a grocery store, a drugstore, and a gas station. So you didn't have to, but they didn't encourage you. They encouraged you not to go out of town. And they encouraged people not to bring their car because the roads were not, it wasn't meant to have.
Right.
But the thing that they took away, I'm going to tell you this, do you know that there used to be parking lots in the old alphabet houses in the center that you could drive in, and that's where you parked your car. You never parked it on the street.
Have you noticed the culture change over the years, or is it still mostly the same as it was? Obviously, it's bigger now.
It's
but-
bigger.
The town has grown so much even since when I was a kid. Our Boy Scout troop used to take several camping trips a year where we would start in the center of Richland at COP Church, hike a couple of miles, and we'd be in the desert
Wow.
and out of sight of civilization,
Wow.
and we could just camp.
Yeah.
And those are all houses and businesses, and
That's
it's not like
wild.
that anymore.
I used to go walk with my younger brother, Ed, to the Yakima River from that F house on Stevens. We were going fishing. We never did catch a fish. I'm glad. But we went there to go fishing.
Greg, one more question for you. As someone who's worked in education and has earned your retirement now, what do you see? I guess in my generation even, what have you seen kind of over the years that has changed about kids growing up here, or gives you reason for hope or reason for excitement? I guess what is it like to be an educator in Richland and watch kids come up through this unique place?
Well, I of course felt especially privileged teaching where I taught at Hanford High School. I think a lot of Richland High School had the same atmosphere. So we did have a core group of really bright kids, and it just sort of naturally follows if both your parents are research scientists, you're
Yeah.
going to be very academic. But I think people forget that both Richland and Hanford High, as well as a lot of the other schools, have a very high free and reduced lunch count. There are a lot of kids who are not really well off and are not really academic. And so it's really important that their needs be addressed as well, which is something my wife and I tried to do before we were retired.
Yeah.
but we're enjoying our retirement a lot too.
Good.
But I think, yeah, there are some great kids here, which is exciting, although they're also very, very isolated and insulated from a lot of the problems of the real world.
Yes.
They're pretty clueless as far as challenges that underrepresented minorities find, and they have to get out into the bigger world. So I worry about kids who never go any further than Columbia Basin College or WSU Tri-Cities,
Yeah.
not because there's anything wrong with those institutions, but I think it's really important as you're growing up to get out, as you did, to get out other places.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't just stay here.
Well, thank you guys so much. This was a wonderful interview. So wonderful to talk to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.